Coming up on Tech News today, Microsoft's new email system, Outlook.com. Also, Twitter bans NBC critic, but then restores him. And 8K television, the pixel is dead. We'll tell you why next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, July 31st, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow. Send files of almost any size easily and securely with ShareFile by Citrix. Try ShareFile today. For a 30-day free trial, go to sharefile.com, click the radio microphone, and enter the promo code TNT. And by Carbonite Online Backup. Automatic, continual, and unlimited backup for your computer files for only $59 a year. Try it free at Carbonite.com and use offer code TNT to get 2 bonus months with purchase. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each show with the top 10 stories in the news feeds. Microsoft launched a new email service today separate from Hotmail called Outlook.com. Although if you go to Hotmail, you may be pushed into Outlook. The new service has the Metro look and feel, limits the number of ads, at least in relation to Hotmail, and integrates with Twitter and Facebook, and soon Skype as well. The service is public today in a preview phase, though anybody can sign up, and it comes with virtually unlimited storage. They're trying to limit it for the spammers.
10 lucky humans are now also jurors in the great Apple versus Samsung Who Infringed on Whom trial.
Winning.
Jury selection wrapped up at the end of the first day with Judge Lucy Coe watching over closely. Apple wants $2.5 billion in damages from Samsung for patent infringement, and several members in the prospective 70-member jury pool said that they had either once actually worked for Apple themselves, had relatives currently working at Apple, or had friends and neighbors who worked at Apple. New drinking game, 6 degrees of Apple.
All right, Android faithful, Spotify has some good news for you. Starting today, Android users will be able to access Spotify's free radio streaming service. It's like Pandora in that you can create a station based on a track. You'll get ads on your free stream unless you pony up some money. The app's free and it's available right now.
Want an iPhone with wireless 4G speed?
Yes.
Buy an iPod Touch.
Huh?
Freedom Pop just announced that it has a case for the iPod Touch that gives you access to Sprint's WiMAX network. While that may be nothing new, people doing cases with data, Freedom Pop's plans are particularly attractive. When you spend $99 on the case, you get a half gig of data per month for free, and you can pay more or earn up to 5 gigabytes a month through referrals. Pre-orders start today.
Hulu Plus has come to Apple TVs. Some users report having to restart their Apple TVs in order to see the new Hulu Plus icon, but the service should now be available to anyone who already pays for it. Users are also reporting that Hulu Plus can be billed straight to an Apple iTunes account. New users will be able to sign up directly from the Apple TV and given a week's free trial.
Twitter has officially adopted another convention already used by its users. Like hashtags before it, Twitter now supports clickable stock symbols. A dollar sign with a stock symbol after it will yield a clickable link that leads to a Twitter search results page.
That's something they took from another service, too. Twitter has suspended the account of a newspaper correspondent from The Independent. Guy Adams posted the email address of president of NBC Olympics Gary Zenkel and then urged people to email Zenkel and complain to him about delayed broadcasts of the opening ceremonies on NBC. Twitter told Adams the post violated its terms of service. Many users have taken to reposting the offending email address on Twitter in protest. Twitter and NBC are business partners in Olympic coverage.
Samsung's Music Hub app launched on the Samsung Galaxy S3 in Europe back in May, and today it arrived on the Samsung Galaxy S3 in the U.S. The free version of the service lets users buy tracks and albums and listen to 30-second clips of all songs. If you pay $9.99 per month, you can stream with no ads or limits, and Samsung will scan and match your music and upload any tunes it can't match into 100 gigabytes of storage space.
A huge search engine and a dominant social network are teaming up in China. Baidu and Sina have announced plans to share mobile search results and content. Baidu is the country's main search engine, and Sina runs Sina Weibo, the Twitter of China. Sina will integrate Baidu search into its mobile site, while Baidu will offer a cloud data storage service with pre-installed Sina Weibo apps.
For anyone worried about game support on the upcoming Android-powered game console, the Ouya, don't panic. After announcing a deal to bring OnLive games to the console, Ouya announced a deal with Square Enix coming in to support them. Final Fantasy III will be the first title, and it's going to be available at launch.
All right, let's take a quick break. Thank our sponsor for this episode, Citrix and Sharefile.com. Businesses rely on exchanging information, and you need to have a reliable, easy, and secure way of sharing those files. You may think, well, that's kind of impossible. I can do secure, but it's not going to be easy. Or I can do easy, but it's not going to be secure. And reliability? Well, you get all three with Sharefile. You are able to just click on an attachment in Outlook, and the link is sent to the person that you want on the other end. They don't have to do anything except click that link and get the file. Ensures files of almost any size go through successfully without any bounce backs, and keeps your files safe, secure, and under your control. So you can add a password to it if you want to say, hey, you know what? I only want people to know the password to open this file. And you can have reports that tell you who opened the files and when. I use Sharefile to share sensitive documents, and it comes in handy when people say they've looked at stuff that they may or may not have looked at. It also helps you know, hey, this got through, the person saw it, now I can remove it so it's not available anywhere else. But you don't have to take our word for it. Try it out for free. We have a special offer for you. I want you to try it with this special offer. Sign up today and receive a 30-day free trial. Go to sharefile.com, click on the radio microphone, and enter the promo code TNT. Remember, visit sharefile.com, give it a try, and type in the promo code TNT and show your support and your thanks to them for supporting Tech News Today. All right, joining us today to dig a little deeper into this discussion stories in the tech world, Mr. Simon Dingle is back with us from South Africa. How's it going, Simon?
Hey guys, good. Thanks. Good to chat to you again, Tom. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing well. You've been enjoying watching the Olympics happening up in the other half of the globe above you?
Oh man, yeah. We got our first gold medal yesterday. I think I was told. I'm really bad when it comes to the sports, so not the biggest Olympic fan, but it's been fun a little bit. I've caught.
Yeah. Well, all you got to know is how many medals. It's all about the medal count, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the Olympics is all about?
I thought it was about competition and spirit and peace and everything.
I thought it was about restricting social media, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Oh,
Let's
awesome.
start with that Freedom Pop service that we were talking about earlier. They've done this for the iPhone before, right?
Yeah, less restriction here. A Freedom Pop plan, we talked about it in the news fuse and we talked about it previously, but today they were announcing their iPod Touch sleeve. Now, unlike other sleeves that existed before, this is form-fitted for the iPod Touch. It's going to be running on Sprint's 4G LTE and WiMAX networks, as well as the 3G network. Now, if you go to Freedom Pop's page, it's kind of hard to find that information. So you got to do a lot of research, and thankfully I was able to find this thanks to the folks at CNET who found this information out. If you look at their coverage map, it's not exactly spectacular. When you sign up for it, you put in your name and your address, and you'll find out if you're covered in their areas.
It's Sprint WiMAX coverage, right? Same coverage?
Sprint WiMAX LTE. So I'm not sure if this device is going to have both, or if they're going to have several different variants of it. But right now, again, the data on their site is still a little spotty. So the reports are saying it's running on both the LTE and WiMAX networks.
Oh, that makes a big difference if it does LTE, for sure.
And their iPhone offering before only ran on those 4G networks, not offering a 3G backup. But this version is going to allow that. And the plans are $500 megabytes of broadband every month for free. So once you buy this $100 device, you don't have to pay anything unless you want to. Each additional gigabyte...
Or unless you want to use more than 500 megabytes.
That's true. Additional gigabytes will cost you $10, and there's no contracts. So they also have some ways to make money in the idea that you pay $10 extra, or you can have your friends use your device as... you can have referrals, which get you more gigabytes. It seems like
so wait, if I say, hey, Sarah, sign up using my special link, then I get 10 megabytes or something.
Yeah, kind of like a Dropbox kind of style. So you get some extra...
Hey, Sarah, sign up.
Megabytes.
Okay.
It's definitely an interesting way to promote something like this service. I mean, it definitely... Just trying to think of this. The iPhone is very expensive with its data contract plans. If you buy a device that costs $100, that also acts as a Wi-Fi hotspot for 8 other devices. That's what this thing does. It seems like it could be a real dent for people who don't want to buy into contracts like me. Sarah, what do you think?
Or maybe even if you, excuse me, don't live in the U.S. and you're going to be over here every so often and you just need something that's going to work on your stateside because it's just a one-time fee. I mean, obviously, if you go over the 500 megabytes, it's a whole nother ballgame. And I'm sure that Freedom Pop knows that that's going to happen pretty often. So they're going to get more money out of us or out of the people who are participating. But I get this question a lot from people saying, well, what's my option if I just want something that's good for data and stuff? Sometimes, maybe even if this wasn't your only iPhone replacement, it could be a really good backup.
If only we had someone who traveled to the U.S. frequently but didn't live here to ask. Simon?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be in New York next week, and what I do is I pick up a prepaid T-Mobile SIM whenever I'm in the US, and they've got that really neat plan. I think it's $3 a day for unlimited data calls and text. So that's my solution whenever I land in the States. If I haven't kept my T-Mobile SIM topped up, I pick up a new one whenever I'm there. They're really cheap. But what would be awesome is if we had a sleeve like this that would let you put any SIM into it that wasn't locked down to a network. I mean, I get their business model, but they'd sell a ton of these things internationally if you could turn any iPod Touch anywhere in the world into a phone. That would be cool. And
Freedom Pop's really promoting the fact that because it's an iPod Touch and it believes it's running on Wi-Fi, you can do things like FaceTime right now, although that'll change in iOS 6 for everybody. And obviously, that will eat up megabytes pretty fast. And they're showing off video calling. Again, Freedom Pop only does data. So the fact that they can show voice calling via Skype is something I've done before in the past. It's not exactly elegant by any means, especially if your coverage is a little spotty, because Skype has been very unforgiving when it thinks it's on Wi-Fi, as far as I've seen in my I guess, tests. Not really a test, with my actual life.
But you've gone long periods with only using your iPod Touch, right, as your phone. So it can be done. It
can be done, but you better be able to tell everybody that they might not be able to call you, because the iPod Touch is not necessarily going to keep that data connection with that Wi-Fi hotspot.
Were you using Google Voice for your phone number, or were you using a Skype phone number?
I use a Google Voice number that would call Skype.
Because I know that using Google Voice with Skype has caused me untold issues in the past. Like the forwarding I had to give it up, in other words, because people were trying to interview me for things like audio recording and radio calls, and when they would call me on the Google Voice number, it was just crap. And I had to have them called directly to Skype.
I'm thinking for a lot, this is not the best solution for everybody. But if you want to add,
a lot of
if you think about it, though, $199 buys you an iPod Touch, another $100 buys you data connection. You have a $300 device that gives you 500 megabytes of data every month for free. That's pretty interesting. I would love to try this out.
And each additional
and as you said before, Iyaz, there's no contract, right? Which is a big one.
No contract, no cancellations. In the ads they're running, they have a guy calling up AT&T canceling his iPhone plan, and they also Freedom Pop plans on having a version of this for the new iPhone.
Each additional gigabyte costs $10. So 5 gigabytes would cost you $50. It's a little more expensive than you would pay, you know, prepaid or postpaid with something like Verizon on a MiFi or something, but you get the integration and you get this flexibility. I love it. Let's talk about the London Olympics and the Twitters. Guy Adams, as we mentioned in the news fuse, works for The Independent. He got booted off of Twitter. He's been critical of NBC on Twitter. He said a lot of bordering on nasty things, depending on how you look at it. The service Topsy has preserved some of his tweets, even though his Twitter account, let me refresh to make certain, but I believe it's still suspended.
He's upset with their coverage and handling of tape delay versus live and bad communication.
Yeah, he's critical of Matt Lauer. He's critical of the delays. And then he said, the last post that he made, the man responsible for NBC pretending the Olympics haven't started yet is Gary Zenkel. Tell him what you think. And then posted his email address. Now, this is a corporate email address. It'd be very easy to guess at if you could find any NBC corporate email addresses. You could figure out what the protocol is for these things, and you could guess it. However, Twitter has a policy that says if you give away someone's credit card information, their social security number, their non-public personal phone numbers, or their non-public personal email addresses, you can be suspended. You're in violation of their policy. He did that in their opinion. He gave away an email address that was not public. Now, it does say on Twitter's policy page that keep in mind, although you may consider certain information to be private, not all postings of such information may be a violation of this policy. If information was previously posted or displayed elsewhere on the internet prior to being put on Twitter, it is not a violation of this policy. So people have found, and Danny Sullivan has a great article going into this, that Mr. Zenkel's email address was available on the web. There was another protest site from June 2011 that had his email address listed. So technically, if you do a strict reading of Twitter's policy,
well,
that was there.
A protest site, so not to interrupt you or anything, but because his email is searchable does not mean that at NBC.com it's, hey, this is Gary, please do get a hold of me, I welcome your feedback. Two different things.
So Twitter's policy strictly says if it's posted somewhere else on the internet, then we're going to consider it public. But it was posted on a blogger site that was a protest that somebody had found NBC. Is that public enough? Danny Sullivan argues this email address was not widely available, and Guy Adams, the reporter, is saying the email was widely available. You could find it with a Google search. So it depends on how strictly you want to interpret this. It was available, maybe not widely available, but somebody could find it before he posted it on Twitter. It's also a corporate email address, not a private email address. So some people say there shouldn't be an expectation of privacy, but we're not dealing with the law here. We're dealing with a policy that Twitter puts into place.
And it sounds like it's a policy that's vague enough so that even discussing it right now, I'm not quite sure which way it should have gone. A lot of people were pretty upset with Twitter, saying this is not a reason to shut down someone's account. It's a reason to maybe send somebody a warning or tell them to delete that specific tweet or even reword it. And to me, this does seem extreme. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I really buy the whole if his email address was already on some sort of website on the internet that was critical of NBC and wanted you to also be critical by using his email address, that counts as.
But whether it's critical or not, should that matter? His email address was publicly available. It's not like Guy Adams went and exposed something that no one else could find. But it was not, I think, if it's easily available, maybe.
Perhaps. I think maybe what I'm getting at is if something is publicly available because it was already used by a third party who wanted you to like email bomb somebody, that is not necessarily public enough.
Although that's not what the policy says. It doesn't say anything about encouraging people to email bomb. It just says disclosing private information. So I think what's really got people upset is Twitter has a reputation for being very good about defending the privacy of individuals who use Twitter. In the WikiLeaks subpoenas, in Syrian activist cases, they have said, no, even with a subpoena, we're going to challenge this. We're not going to give up private information. This case, though, NBC apparently complained and they pulled it down. At least Twitter says we don't monitor things, so it would take an NBC complaint. However, Christopher McCloskey, NBC Sports Vice President of Communications, told the Daily Telegraph, our social media department was actually alerted to it by Twitter, and then we filled out the form and submitted it. So it looks like somebody at Twitter was monitoring this, or maybe they just followed the guy and saw it accidentally and told somebody, hey, this guy's got your email address. Are you sure about this? And you might want to fill out the form. And then NBC did alert Twitter so that Twitter could say, well, NBC alerted us, so that's why we took it down.
So they weren't alerted to it by somebody on Twitter. It was the company Twitter that alerted NBC and said we're encouraging you to take down this account, which is also a little weird.
That's what it sounds like.
I mean, it just thinking about all the policy stuff just reminds me of just law school entirely. But this is all private companies doing what they want to do. So the fact that Twitter has a written policy or not, it doesn't really make a difference. If they think they're trying to do this privacy concern of, hey, wait a minute, as far as Twitter knew, possibly there's an email out there that shouldn't have been out there, and they didn't know it was widely available. Are they supposed to check? What exactly is the protocol for them to? I mean, they don't have to have a due process, but what is their process at all when it comes to determining the validity of people's complaints or not? So this kind of thing is probably going to make Twitter have to figure out how they want to handle this in the future, or otherwise it's going to look like that they're just like in the pockets of corporations like NBC or other things like that.
Now, here's the other thing. Twitter has to have this policy because they don't want people abusing it and creating email bombs or exposing private information. Let's just all agree on that.
Sure.
It's whether it should have been implemented in this case. And even at this point, I think it would be incumbent upon Twitter to examine this and possibly decide to reverse the decision to suspend the account. What they've told Guy Adams is that he must apologize if he wants his account reinstated. He must write an apology and acknowledge that he broke their rules.
Is it a 140-character apology, or does it have to be like 3 paragraphs? I need more information.
Simon, what do you think Twitter should do? What do you think Guy Adams should do in this case?
I definitely think Guy Adams should not be apologizing to anybody. I think Twitter should just put him back on. I mean, there's really no way to defend what Twitter has done here. And when it comes to corporate email addresses, as far as I'm concerned, any corporate email address is public by virtue of the fact that it's appended with a company name. I mean, we've all got corporate email addresses, right? I'm guessing you guys have got @twit.tv addresses, and it's easy to intuit anybody's corporate email address. I don't think they should be considered private at all. And I just don't find any way to defend what Twitter's done. But making him apologize, that's not going to fly.
And I wonder I mean, I sort of agree with you, Simon. It's a corporate email address. How private do we really expect email to be in the first place in an era of spam and spam filters? How much of a big issue it is? I guess if enough people bombed his email address, it could be a denial of service, and that would be a negative reaction. But and that's what Guy Adams was calling for. But that's not what Twitter is saying they suspended him for, and Twitter didn't contact him and say, hey, we're going to remove this tweet, or could you delete this tweet? It seems like it looks like Twitter and NBC were colluding because they're business partners to silence a critic.
Well, and
I don't think that's what happened, but that's what it looks like.
Apologize, Mr. Adams, like a child.
Yeah, that's just
it's like do you want him to feel that he did something wrong, or do you want him to just write a sarcastic apology?
Right,
because that's what you're going to get.
Web 6300 in the chat room says, is Guy Adams above the rules? I mean, there is another side to this. If he's going against the rules, then he should have to abide by them like everybody else. So I think you just get him to remove the post. And Twitter has done that in the past, where if someone has posted something, they approach them and say, could you please remove this? This violates our policy, rather than going right for the suspension. I think because NBC was involved, they went right for this suspension.
Even if they removed the post themselves, that would be better than shutting him out of the network, right?
Yeah, that's another alternative.
Maybe that could be his choice.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much his choice right now. Apologize, or you can't come back.
Well, let's talk about some good news.
Well, this is good news for anybody who has an Apple TV and also pays for Hulu Plus. I'm in that camp. Hulu Plus has come to the Apple TV. We talked about it in the news views, but there's some interesting angles that I see in this story. Sure enough, as soon as I read this morning, I fired up my Apple TV. My Hulu Plus icon was there. Some users report that they had to reboot their Apple TVs, but mine was there. And for anybody who has used Hulu Plus on a Roku, for example, that was the service that I used to get Hulu content on my big TV in the past. The interface is all Apple TV. It's beautiful. The Roku app, while it works, I don't think anybody would say that it was beautiful. The search functionality is really nice. They've got...
and when you say beautiful, you're not talking about the video quality?
I am talking about the user interface, the UX. The video quality, I didn't look at too much. I just played a couple, something in my Criterion collection, which they have a little section for, and something in my recently watched, and it seemed okay. Again, these were just small samples. But what's interesting is... people get fired up about this, like, okay, this is the reason that I'm going to cut the cord, And there was a comment on one of the blogs. A commenter said, now, as soon as Apple gets HBO Go, that's it. I am cutting the cord. And someone said, no, but you won't be able to get HBO Go unless you actually have a cable subscription. So that really doesn't work. Now, if you don't have HBO Go or something that also requires a cable subscription, this does, for $99, give you all that much more reason to get some network and cable content on your Apple TV. And it looks really nice. That makes sense to me. But then I guess we get even yet closer to, because Apple's still kind of flying under the radar with the Apple TV. They don't really talk about it that much. It wasn't even part of the earnings release last week, although when asked about the Apple TV sales, Tim Cook on the earnings call said that the company had sold 1.7 million Apple TVs in their Q3, which was not only up 170% from the same quarter the year before, but actually outsold Xbox 360s in the same quarter. Xbox 360 is, number one console. So these are pretty strong numbers, even though they still seem to want to downplay Apple TV as much as possible. I don't really feel like that's what's going on internally at Apple right now. It's almost like there's some sort of strategy by not touting these sorts of things, because I think there's something else coming. But What I'm worried about at this point is, all right, well, I don't already have a cable subscription, but let's say that Hulu Plus was enough for me to cut the cord and just have an Apple TV for my Netflix, my Hulu Plus, and this and that. Well, eventually Comcast, who provides my internet service, if enough of us do this, we'll say, well, you're just going to have to pay more for your internet service because you're going to have to get this content somehow. I mean, we're delivering the content to you.
Or they'll put bandwidth caps.
Or that.
All over it, which they're doing. Yeah.
The companies like this, big companies, aren't in the business of saying, well, you know, tides have changed, tides have turned. Rather, we're just going to get less money now from everybody.
They would have to if there was competition. That's what it all comes down to.
Yes.
You don't have anywhere else to turn.
No.
To be like, oh, well, I'll get this other internet provider.
Right, and that's why some of these, Arrow, for example, you hear about these services and they're really exciting because you think, if we get too far in a direction where where a company like Comcast or whoever your big provider is forced to change their policies and get fewer dollars per person per month, that's a good thing for consumers. I worry about in the short term these sorts of advantages because they want to make the same profit margin as they did before Hulu Plus was on Apple TV.
And Apple doesn't add a whole lot of apps to the Apple television very often. I mean, usually it's with a big upgrade to the whole UI. Do they bother to put in another application or two? But I'm hoping this is just the start of something else because, I mean, we know the Apple TV is based on iOS. They could simply have applications that run on that Apple television. And if Hulu Plus is, I don't know how long it's been in the works. I'm kind of curious if it's just a port, considering I think somebody's idea was if you could use your Mountain Lion-based Mac to just put your Hulu content on television, at some point Hulu's like, well, if you can do it anyway, why not just do it through our application instead? So if it wasn't that difficult, if Mountain Lion's only been out for a couple of days and they've known it's been coming, I'm just kind of curious, what else is coming for this Apple TV? Because it's just sitting there with a lot of power and doing very little right now.
Integration with your cable box. That's what's coming, according to Pete Rojas. That's what he wrote.
With Dish. That's right.
We'll see if it does. Let's take a quick break. We're going to talk about 8K television with Sharif Sark from Engadget in just a second, but want to thank Carbonite for their support of Tech News today. This episode brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Are your computer files backed up right now? Answer honestly, because I can't hear you. You're only talking to yourself. And if they're not backed up, you're in danger. You want to keep your files backed up, and the best way to keep them backed up is one local backup, one in the cloud. In the cloud automatically and continually backed up is exactly what Carbonite does. Helps keep you safe from that computer crash, that nasty virus, fire, theft. You can really be protected with online backup from Carbonite. Your files are automatically and continually backed up, stored safely off-site, and if you have a computer disaster, it's easy to restore the files. Plus, you can access your backed up files privately on any computer as a bonus on your smartphone, your iPad, with a free app that Carbonite offers. Unlimited backup for your PC or Mac is only $59 a year, but you can try it for free. Go to Carbonite.com, enter the offer code TNT, and you'll get 2 bonus months free if you decide to buy with that offer code TNT. Be sure to sign up for the free trial from the homepage to get the 2 months free. No credit card required for the free trial either. Don't forget that offer code TNT at Carbonite.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Hey, very happy to have Sharif Sark from Engadget join us now from London. How's it going, Sharif?
It's going very well.
Nice Are you able to actually get around in your city these days?
Yeah, I have noticed the change. There are tons of tourists around, but luckily I'm just in the suburbs, so it's pretty quiet here still. No one wants to come where I live.
That's good to hear. So you got a chance to go see something called Super HiVision. Tell us about it. It was at the BBC Broadcasting House, and I think you saw swimming?
That's right. A live feed from the Aquatic Centre in London, in East London. And what was special about it? Well, it was a 33 megapixel live feed. That is 16 times the resolution of high-def TV. And I think I was in the 4th screening in history of a live broadcast for public consumption. So yeah, I felt pretty privileged to be there. I really did, and I can feel my opinions kind of shifting slightly, having seen it. And I'm hoping you're going to ask me about that.
Okay, we will. We know this is a partnership of BBC and NHK. How big was the screen you were looking at?
Gosh, I didn't ask exactly, but think of a small but properly equipped cinema theater, movie theater.
Okay.
So like a 100-seater.
Yeah,
There are some photos on Engadget that kind of, you can see people's heads, so you can get a sense of scale. Yeah, maybe I really should have asked, but I did make sure that I sat like 3 meters from the panel itself, the screen itself, which of course was receiving a projected image from one of only 6 super high vis projectors that exist in the world. So they brought this projector over. There are only 3 cameras in the world that can shoot the stuff, and they were all sent to London. And probably only a couple of trucks that can handle the signal. So 1 video truck, 1 audio truck, a lot of infrastructure. I mean, there's not much of it, but you need a proper setup. It's expensive to actually set up this broadcast, transmit it, and then project it at the other end. There's not a lot of equipment that can do it, but they managed to gather it all in this place in BBC Broadcasting House. And I made sure I was sat right up close because I wanted to see those pixels if they existed. And the thing is, they didn't exist, actually. I really tried to spot a pixel. I zoomed in with my camera. And, the pixel is dead as of now.
Well, and that's the thing, right? When we saw HD, everyone said the first time they saw HD, oh my gosh, it's like being there. It's like looking at the field. And then your eyes start to adjust and you start to notice just a little bit of the artifacts and the pixels that are there. 4K isn't even totally here yet. We don't have 4K televisions in any homes. Well, most homes anyway. But you're saying you can even see the pixels on that, but you're promising 8K pixels gone, huh?
You can see the pixels on 4K. So I've been to a 4K screening, which kind of represents what someone who has like 30 grand kicking around, they could build in their basement if they have like a movie theater in their basement. They could build a 4K setup for maybe 20, 30K. And I've been in that kind of setup. But within, say, 6 meters from the screen, you'll see pixels even in that setup. I can't remember the size of the screen I looked at last time. I'm terrible with numbers of that, but I wrote it up last time when I looked at 4K, but you could still see the pixels. The thing is, I was convinced by 4K. I was like, whoa, this is amazing, because I don't want to sit that close to the screen anyway. So I went into this 8K screening, which is, like I say, 4 times again the resolution of 4K, a complete skeptic. I was like, what's the point? And so many more pixels, but I couldn't see pixels on 4K anyway. But I sat so close, and I'm telling you, it was different because I was so close to it. It was like the frame had disappeared. It was like in my peripheral vision, right? And it was like looking through a window, or it was like being in a box in a stadium.
You said you got annoyed when the camera angles changed because you were busy looking at stuff.
Well, this is the thing. So it was a perfect experience for a while, because you had a wide shot. You could see all of, like, let's say I was watching the opening ceremony. You could see all of the little ant-like people walking around in perfect detail. Like, you could see the gaps in people's teeth, even if they're just a tiny speck on the screen. And it gave the feeling like I was peering at them. But you see, as soon as the camera angle changed, some of the cameras, they didn't have the same contrast. Some of them, they couldn't maintain a complete depth of field. They had slightly shallow depth of field, so some stuff was out of focus. Stuff you don't normally notice, really, and also lens distortion. Those things you don't notice on cinema, they suddenly came to the foreground because they were different from the way your eyes work, and suddenly you lose the illusion. So they're going to have to change the way they shoot when they shoot with this 8K technology. But if they do, the results are pretty amazing.
I thought it was interesting. You quoted BBC's project head Tim Plimming saying that he thinks people should skip right to 8K and just forget 4K. How long before people start to adopt? Was there any sense of that? Did they talk about how long we're going to have to wait to see these things come to consumers, these kinds of televisions, and the cameras getting in the hands of broadcasters?
They didn't give me a timescale, but they gave me an impression that they themselves are kind of going to skip 4K because they just want to take it to the end of the road. I was going expecting to find a bunch of engineers who were seeing this as experimental, and that is exactly not what I found. I found people that are really keyed up about this and see it as the logical next step after HD TV, just skipping 4K. And the reason is, it's that they see mobile as one trend, and that is a data-rich trend, right? You're going to get, like, say you're watching athletics, you're going to get all the stats, the rankings, everything sent to your mobile, and you'll stay engaged with the data that way. But then you want that premium experience, the immersion, with no data whatsoever, no graphical overlay, no commentary, no logos on the screen, just as if you're looking through that window in the box, right, in the best seats of the house. And they see the two divergent trends, and there isn't 4K or HD TV in the middle there. There's just those two extremes. And that seems to be the way they're thinking in terms of investing for the future.
You can find Sharif's write-up of this at Engadget.com, and he's got a video embedded there as well if you want to take a closer look at what he was able to find. Sharif Stark, thanks so much for joining us, man.
My pleasure, as always. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Let's move on to the first insider trading lawsuit filed against Zynga.
Yeah, that's right. We talked last week about a really, really lackluster quarter for Zynga and what it means for the future of the company. A law firm called Newman Furroth. There's a lot of R's in there. Yeah, exactly. Is the first reported to have actually filed, although it's one of 5 firms who had announced they were going to start investigations into insider trading. So here's the deal. Back in December of last year when Zynga went public, it went public at $10 a share. Now, as is almost always the case, for a period of time, employees and early investors are locked up. So you can't do anything with those shares. You can't do anything.
You're not supposed to touch them. You're not supposed to sell them. You're not supposed
even
to
if the share price spikes,
right.
It's basically designed to keep everybody honest. Until they were locked up until pretty much the end of May of this year, so somewhat recently. But in April, some people, a select group of lucky people, got underwriters Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs to waive that restriction. On April 3rd, these insiders collectively sold over $500 million worth of shares at $12 a pop. So IPO at 10, shares sold at 12, people made a lot of money. Now, at the time, Zynga gave a rationale for all of this. They said, listen, we've got a lot of people at the company who have a lot of shares. It's better to stagger out the sales of shares rather than have everybody dumping out stock at the end of May. That creates a volatile market. We don't want that at Zynga. We want an orderly distribution of shares. It'll help increase the company's public float. So this was Zynga saying, we know that this might seem weird, but it actually makes more sense.
But this is the company that also asked a lot of their employees to give back their shares before they went public.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is the company that I think a lot of the reason that this is happening is because people have been extremely critical of some of Zynga's moves anyway. So, all right, so we've got this situation now where it's like, well, okay, when you have an antitrust an insider trading investigation. Now we start, if the case proceeds, we start looking into emails, internal documents to figure out who at the top knew that Zynga might be going south, and if they did know, what was the time frame for all of this? Because there's a difference between someone saying, listen, the forecast looks good, we've got this game coming out, which is part of the reason that they gave for really bad earnings in the last quarter was that one of their highly anticipated games was delayed, so they didn't make a lot of revenue in that quarter. If all of that checks out, you don't necessarily have a successful lawsuit on your hands because someone, Mark Pincus, the CEO of Zynga, could be thinking inside his head, even though I want this company to succeed so badly, I just don't know, I'm going to sell my shares now. That's not necessarily any sort of insider trading. It's, did people know that the company's forecast was not as rosy as they were publicly telling their investors? And if so, that's a problem. According to the New York Times, by the way, in reaction to an article on Business Insider last week that said, listen, CEO Mark Pincus only sold a small fraction of his shares, so the stock tanking affects him, even though he made some money in this April sale and the secondary trade offering. He's still lost a lot of money. New York Times says, well, maybe that's true for him, but the COO sold 45% of his shares back in April. He was one of the people who was allowed to. The CFO sold more than half of his stock. So in some cases, maybe it seems like, well, he only sold a fraction of the share. They're still pretty much in here. Not true for all the executives at Zynga.
Does it sound like foul play to you, Simon?
Oh, undoubtedly sounds like foul play. But I'm just wondering about the prospects for Zynga going forward. I mean, we've seen technology companies, Zynga and Facebook in particular, not doing too well lately. And it seems like this is, if I go through the comments on some of the stories, there are people talking about a bubble bursting. I think that's a bit extreme, but we're certainly seeing things level down. And some would say becoming more realistic about what the real value of these companies are. And I wonder what the future holds for Zynga, because right now it doesn't look too great.
All right. Well, we've been going back and forth with good news, bad news, good news, bad news. Some good news. Guy Adams' Twitter account has been restored.
3 minutes ago, he writes, "Oh, my Twitter account appears to have been unsuspended. Did I miss much while I was away?"
So
they were watching TNT.
For whatever reason, and we'll be interested to find out if there is a reason given. Guy Adams from The Independent, his Twitter account's back. So it looks like Twitter did the right thing, in my opinion, anyway. Let's finish up with some more tech. I like that 8K TV story. What do we got from Leap with wireless control?
Leap Motion updated the world and what they're doing, and they had a blog post. And that's a $70 peripheral. Lets you bring gesture control to your computers. It's supposed to be like way more sensitive than the Kinect could ever be. And in 2 months, they've announced that 26,000 people have asked for SDKs and applications. So what exactly are people going to be building for the Leap wireless device? Not Leap wireless, Leap Motion device. Excuse me.
Yeah, different company.
Totally different company. 14% proposed gaming-related applications. No surprise there. 12% said music and video. 11% for art and design. 8% for science and medicine. 6% for robotics. So theoretically, you'll be able to get applications to control robots, because Leap Motion also announced it's going to make an app store available, because more than 90% of those asking for SDKs wanted a place to sell their work. So this would be one store where you'd be able to access all the apps they can take advantage of. Leap Motion. $70, expected to ship next year. I'm really excited about tech like this, because I think that's like a 3-foot range, but if you can use it for, I don't know, let's say I wanted to eat a donut before the show, I could control my computer.
And we had some nice folks in the audience brought us donuts before the show.
A very real concern of mine, because I always want to eat donuts. And I don't want to touch my keyboard and mess it up. So I would be able to use something like this. Simon, are you all...
Connect. Well, how is this different?
This is so much more accurate than the Kinect. It can measure many more inputs at one time, and it can measure at a much higher accuracy than the Kinect can right now. And it's actually physically smaller than the Kinect as well. Simon, are you all excited about being able to control your stuff with your gestures?
Oh yeah, I badly want one of these. I've messed around a little bit with Kinect for Windows, and it's cool, but this just looks so much better. And the first time we saw the proof of concept videos coming out, I guess it was at some stage last year. I remember seeing a video going, "That looks cool, but you know, I'd like to see some third party play around with this and get a better idea of how good it actually is." And we're seeing that happen now, and it looks amazing. And the price point too. What are they saying about $80?
$70.
That's crazy.
$70. There you go. I'm getting one.
Are you going to get one, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always got donut grease on my hands. I don't want to touch anything.
Well, that, and it brings, like, if you think of Windows 8, it has those massive tile interface. And if you have a laptop that doesn't have a touchscreen, it brings that capability. You have these really big targets. It seems to make a lot of sense. So you can take an old machine and bring the features that a touchscreen would have to do, but you wouldn't have to have the touchscreen. So
$70.
I'm very intrigued by this.
All right, let's move on. Oh, go ahead, Simon.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you know, as badly as I want one, I can't tell you exactly what I want it for, though. Like, I'm watching them playing games that I'm a bit old school when it comes to games. I'm like, yeah, okay, not really. Design, I don't do a lot of that. So I just know I want one, but I can't tell you what for.
Yeah, you'll figure that out after you get it. Just play around with it for a while. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
So this Sunday, August 5th at 10:31 p.m. Pacific time, the Mars Curiosity lander will arrive on Mars with its crazy sky crane. You may have seen the video out there from NASA called 7 Minutes of Terror, where members of the JPL team who worked on the Curiosity landing talk about the weight they're going to have to go through from the time that the Curiosity lander actually arrives on the surface of Mars while the signal travels back to Earth to know that it landed successfully. Today, NASA has 2 new videos. Now, a lot of this is the same stuff you've seen before, but one of the videos is narrated by William Shatner, and the other is narrated by Will Wheaton. And there's actually a poll up on the Wired.com story about this. Which one is better? So let's listen in and take our own informal poll. Which one? This is Shatner?
Yeah, this is Shatner.
All right.
The largest rover ever sent to another planet will touch down in the middle of the night after a spectacular entry into the Martian atmosphere and descent to the surface.
All right. So that's just a sample of the Shatner one. Now let's scroll down. And Will Wheaton. Now, if you don't know who these guys are, I'm a little worried. For you.
Where did the Will Wheaton one go?
Is it not there anymore?
Yeah, it appears to not be here. There's
it's
the
there
poll.
online. Here, I'll play it here. You can pull it from mine. I have a pre-roll ad though.
Yeah,
online
so,
that you'll have to wait through. But if you don't, William Shatner, of course, played Captain James T. Kirk on Star Trek: The Original Series.
No.
Will Wheaton played host of the show Tabletop on the Geek and Sundry Network.
Why is TJ
he was
Hooker
also
doing
on Star
what
Trek:
now?
The Next Generation.
Yeah. TJ Hooker's doing what now? He's
TJ Hooker. Okay, can you hear?
Let's see here.
Can you hear my laptop? All right.
I hope so. It's not playing it. No, I can't. I don't know why it's not playing it.
Oh, crap. This is going to...
I think Shatner wins by
default.
Yeah.
Jason, how did it disappear from your version?
I don't know.
Have
I've
you
even
reloaded
refreshed it a couple of times, and it's not there for me.
Speak up, Will.
Come on,
Who's
Will,
trying
don't
to
be
silence
shy.
Will Wheaton? That's what we need to know.
Let's see, I'll refresh one more time. just to see,
Conspiracy.
Yeah, when you refresh, it shows up for me.
but- yeah, see, I'm not getting it.
Here,
this is what I get on my next refresh. No video players at all.
Trying to silence both of them.
I sent you the direct link. Maybe that'll help. But I think we're going to have to abandon the the link in the show notes. Maybe it'll work for you. Who knows? This is a cool idea from NASA. We don't get to vote.
That's what happens when you go head-to-head with Shatner.
I guess so.
You play the game of going head-to-head with
I
Shatner.
will say, and it's
Here,
not
you know
fair
what?
because we didn't hear both, but William Shatner has one of the best voices. I mean, I could listen to him read anything.
I have to say, I've listened to Will Wheaton read a couple of audiobooks now. Some of the best audiobook reading I've ever heard.
Okay.
I got it in a different browser. Ad's just about to finish, and we can check this out for sure.
Okay,
We've
we go.
got the
invested
time.
this
Yes,
far.
let's do it.
This is important. They both start with this montage.
Curiosity is getting ready to make a grand entrance.
Shatner wins.
Yeah.
The largest rover ever sent to another planet will touch down in the middle of the night after a spectacular entry into the Martian
I think Will actually sounds excited.
and descent.
Shatner just sounds like
to the
Shatner.
surface.
And lift
Shatner sounding like Shatner is better than
I don't
anyone
know. I
sounding
felt like
excited.
Shatner phoned it in a little. I think Will actually cares. Plus, Shatner put himself in the video. Did you notice that?
We need a tiebreaker, Jason.
Shatner definitely over Will.
Shatner wins. Shatner
my
beats
votes.
Wheaton.
Fine. Let's move on to the calendar.
That was a weird randomizer. Hey, so yesterday I said that the Yelp earnings were today because I thought that yesterday was July 31st, but it was only July 30th unless you were listening from Australia or something. Anyway, Yelp earnings are tomorrow,
Sarah was
August
in Australia
1st.
for a brief
calendars
moment
are tough for me. Thursday the 2nd, LinkedIn earnings. That one is correct.
That's
I
for
double-checked.
sure. Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of time, but let's check what's incoming really quick.
Incoming message.
We got a lot of emails from people, as we expected, about the story about 3D printing of gun parts and the ability to make a gun with a 3D printer. Asher had one of the more interesting ones, pointing out that the majority of 3D printers are built by hand, these days anyway, rather than purchased. This is especially true of the RepRap project, which uses 3D printed parts to build more printers. And the software controlling these things is also open source. So he doesn't think there's an easy way to implement restrictions like watermarks like you can in Photoshop. And I think that's a really good point. You could still be able to tell which printer printed things, possibly, but that's going to be a lot harder than just tracking a watermark. Also, Alan in Manchester, UK, said Sarah commented that it wasn't the newest printer out there, but I think it's worth noting that Stratasys is the company founded by the inventor of fused deposition modeling and his wife. While the expiration of the original patent has allowed other companies to come onto the market using the same fundamental technology, they still retain many additional patents and technologies towards improving quality. For this reason, and their 20-plus years of experience in 3D printing, they have a lot of inertia in the industry. If they're using typical materials, the resin used was likely either ABS plastics of ABS plus Stratasys special blend. An interesting aspect of this is that there are 3D printing technologies that can produce full-density metal parts. And so moving forward, it may be possible to print all the parts of the working gun if you're a Stratasys.
Good info, Alan. Thank you for that.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks for people for sending things that weren't just about gun control, because that part of the debate is well covered. But this was interesting stuff. Really appreciate that. And thanks to everybody who submitted stories on our Reddit. Our subreddit is technewstoday.reddit.com. That's the place where you can let us know what kind of stuff you'd like us to cover on the show. We definitely take it into account when we pick our stories. And thank you, Simon Dingle. Always great to have your perspective on the show. And you said you're coming to New York soon, huh?
Yeah, I'll be in New York next week. And thanks for having me. It's great hanging out with you guys. And I got to tell you, moving the show time, best idea you've ever had.
You and the people in the UK seem to share that sentiment for some reason.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah. Let folks know what they can find when they go to simondingle.com.
Yeah, they can keep up with all my comings and goings in media, Finweek Magazine, 5FM. I've got my startup 22/7, so I've been tweeting about that. I'm all over the place, but at Simon Dingle on Twitter, that's the best place to go.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. That is a public email address, so if you post it on Twitter, you're safe. You can give us a call, 260-TNT Show. Leave us a voicemail as well. We'll be back tomorrow with Eric Franklin from CNET. See you then.